Hi there, and I'm Fu-Sung Cookye of Goddesses Media. I am your main host and presenter of Mythological Moments, and this is the Strike First Gaming Show. To the left of me, I have cosplay extraordinaire Kitty Kaboom, and to the far end, I have the CEO of Strike First himself, Cobrakai Tone. To the left of him is Dr. B, Galaxy B, and once again, our special guest and presenter is Inferno Spyro.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, thank you for being here. Today we're going to do something a little bit different, and we're breaking off from doing our traditional presenting of fighting game community news, and we're going to get straight into our regular segments. So I'm going to start all the way at the end. What do you have for us in the toy department, Tone?
Yes. I have a few items today. I have a few items today. This is something I'm bringing to you guys from Bandai, and it's from Tamashii Nations. Tamashii Nations, as you know, is a subdivision under Bandai, which was established 2007 in Asakusa, Tokyo, and they dealing with a lot of realization and bringing in the Japanese style influence into the toys, like really into the influence. As you can see, we have a Captain America right here who is very samurai, as well as Star Wars, Darth Vader. So these two lines go into Star Wars and Marvel, as far as I know. I started collecting these about 2018, I believe, when I first started going to Japan. I started with Deadpool, and I worked my way around to going hunting and found more figures, and now I'm deep into it. So let me show you guys a couple things. This is the one I started with. I got this one from Kittyland over in Harajuku. This is the Deadpool. I do not want to murder the names because I do pretty well in Hawaii, but in Japanese, I don't want to murder the names. But this is, I think, Kabukimono Deadpool. I think I did a good job.
Kabukimono.
Yep. These things have around 15 points of articulation. It's not that high for this price point of between $79 and $89. You know, I like the 30 to 40 point articulation, but the design on this is so beautiful. The sculpt job on it. It's the design sculptor. The director was Takayuki Takaya, which did the Kamen Rider figures, also Chogokin, and also he does some other things like Aliens. I have a Figma Predator that is highly valued high, and knowing that I see his work, I know why, because my Predator figure has a lot of detail. So I figure that this has been out for a few years. Some of them are aftermarket. Some of these you can still buy at all the websites, like Big Bad Toy Stores, Premium Bandai, if you want to get some of the newer ones, especially like The Mandalorian just dropped for pre-order, and I think it's going to end soon, so you might want to get that. This one is the War Machine, which is a very beautiful. No one really does a lot of War Machine until lately because of the Avengers and Don Cheadle making War Machine more popular because everyone was just into Iron Man. Very, very, very beautiful. Everything is samurai based. So as you can see, let me bring up the stack. Samurai Sand Trooper. They do, I think majority of the figures they do have to have helmets, so you will get your Darth Vader, your Phasma, your Stormtroopers, Marvel characters that have helmets and masks, and then they remix it off that. So I haven't seen anybody open face like a Punisher or anything built in this. This one has the Taiko drums, Taiko Yaku, Stormtrooper. Very beautiful figures. Like when you get to actually, I don't open a lot of my toys. Like, as you guys know, I'm an inbox collector, but when you see just the level of detail to each, even little pixel, like it's very, very high quality. And I give it up to Takayuki Takaya for making this, and I will collect the rest of these until the end of time. I'm hoping that they will continue on all the other movies as far as Marvel, Avengers, anything else that comes out. And even get to maybe some DC, because DC doesn't get a lot of love nowadays. Marvel Comics gets all the love, and we need some like Dr. Fate and some old school guys, you know what I mean?
Dr. Doom?
Dr. Doom! My guy! But yeah, so I figured you guys would want to collect these if you like highly quality samurai style figures, especially. You can't go wrong, Star Wars and Marvel. For resellers, those are two highly anticipated brands for any toy or any figurine or any collectible of the sort, so you cannot go wrong by purchasing, even if you want to resell. So add this to your collection. It's very beautiful.
Man, I definitely need a Black Panther one now.
Yeah. Now that you mention it, Black Panther.
These are gorgeous. These are really cool. I actually have a friend of mine who cosplays Shogun Vader. And his cosplay looks, he's been doing it before this figure came out. So seeing this figure is actually a real treat. That's really cool. I'm going to have to see if he knows about these because he would definitely want this. So these are cool.
And like I said, the posing, it's not like it's articulate as a lot of other toys, but just the design of the toy standing is beautiful on its own.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge, I had to take the mask off for this one, huge Star Wars fan. To see my favorite culture next to my own of the African rich inheritance of Egypt and Ghana and all of our cultures, Japan is my next favorite. You take Japan, you take Star Wars. I'm one happy camper. Now, when I start seeing Star Wars Egypt figures, now we're going somewhere. So, Star Wars, get at me, because I put that out there. So, if I see that, I'm taking you to court. You better believe it.
Oh, also, one figure that I would want to see in this line, and it is a helmeted character, has a mask, would be General Grievous, with 4 arms and 4 lightsabers.
I bet you that's coming up. They gotta do Grievous.
That's fire.
They have to.
I like it.
Yeah.
Count me in.
Yep, and that's all for me for today, Cookie. That's what I have to offer.
This is an impressive collection you got here, I must say, you guys. Like, this is really cool. I know you don't want to open them. You shouldn't have put these next to me. You know how I am.
Well, you just
happen
happen to be at that end of the couch.
Happen to be here.
Behind the scenes
I
footage.
don't want to make you sweat during the whole show.
I'm sweating right now.
Next time, make sure you pass them the other way around. I'm just saying. Just go that way next time.
Well, I would like to see an Ahsoka figure in that likeness.
Like they did like a whole female line, that'd be sick. All the Twi'leks and everything. You have like
Amidala.
the Lady Sith, you have Amidala, you got every patent pending. Just
You heard it here first.
No, that's cool. I'm still learning about Star Wars. I'm not the biggest, I know that's your foray, I'm not the biggest fan, but there are some characters that have brought me into the fandom because I felt like I could emotionally connect to them. So that's how I kind of got into the series. I think I'd like to see a Darth Maul figure.
Oh, I have a Darth Maul. I actually, there's way more figures that I did not bring. I have Darth Maul, I have Jango Fett, Boba Fett. I think I have another maybe 2 stormtroopers, and a Dark Trooper, and there's a few other Marvels.
Is there a Darth Malgus by any chance? Have they done that yet? Okay. Fun fact, my senpai who runs a Renegade effects group up in North Hollywood, he's been doing like movies for like 40 years. He makes all sorts of props and everything. He's actually like one of the last samurai left on this earth. This man is amazing. He's trained me in weapons and ways of the blade that I like didn't even know like existed. And he's just one of my big mentors. But he is the official Darth Malgus for BioWare. He actually was the one. I helped dress him in the suit and do his veins and his paint for his head. I would put in his contacts. They actually did a flash mob for the Old Republic game that came out in like 2011, 2012, I think is when it came out that year. They actually did a flash mob in New York in Times Square.
Oh, wow.
And it was just a phenomenal, like, cool thing they did, like, press-wise for that. And then later that year, we dressed up again. I got to be like my own Sith character, and we were judging for San Diego Comic-Con, and he came out in his Darth Malgus, and one of my friends I had dressed up along with us, and we got to like be part of the judging that year under Renegade Effects, under him and his wife Wanda. So he's just an awesome, cool guy. I can't wait for you guys to meet him one day. Got to bring him on the show or something. You guys will flip out.
Oh, yeah.
He definitely bring some movie props and everything. We'll just go nuts.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
Full-fledged samurai on set? Come on. Please, I'll be super honored.
Cool. Well, thank you. All right. We look forward to seeing your next presentation in the next episode.
Oh, yeah.
Moving forward, all right, Dr. B, what you got going on in fashion this week?
Can you see me? And with all this camera, can you see me? No, I'm just kidding.
Is your name Cena?
We're going to take the mask off. We're gonna take off the hood, and we're back with another item. So today, one of my favorite brands, we all call me the Bape Jedi, the Bape God. I mean, I have so many nicknames, I'm running out of room to put it on the screen. So we're gonna bring you the Bathing Ape, aka the Bape side bag. Now, this is dope because it came with the Japanese yearly calendar catalog for it. So you get a catalog that has all the rest of the season's releases, plus you get the bag with it. This bag's amazing. I hooked you up with your first Bape side bag, which is amazing.
I remember.
Yep, so I had to make sure that Cookie joined the family of the Bathing Apers, because whenever we go to Japan, that's like our favorite store, one of the favorite stores to stop by, so shout out to Bape. Strike First Gaming definitely always loves you. This bag is so sick. You can kind of wear it on the back like as a big bag, or you can wear it here on the front as a side bag. As you can see, all my stuff matches. I got the full matching sets, the mask. That's custom right here. This is custom as well. This was a toiletry bag set that was customized to a bag. Shout out to Diana for doing this for me. She's Kazi, my producer's girlfriend. She has her own company called Anidasaur, which is does masks and things like that. She took this authentic Bape fabric and made it into this mask. Took this toiletry bag and made it into a side bag. But this is actually released from Bape, and it's the same quality. Like, it's amazing how she was able to stitch this and put this together. So make sure when you're in Japan, you stop by Bape to grab something dope like this. These retail for anywhere from between $100 to $200, and sometimes it climbs even higher the older it is. Dope stuff. Oh, wow.
So, from what I understand, you know, I've been to Japan a couple of times, but it wasn't until I went on the trip with Strike First Gaming that you showed me these locations for Bape and Billionaire Boys Club.
Right.
So, what I'd like for people to know out there, if they may not know, so Bape is stationed in Japan? Is that where they began?
Yes. So the first Bape store started in Harajuku, and then it spread all throughout Japan, and then after that it hit America and the rest of the world. New York had a store, LA's had a store, you know, the UK ends up getting a store, Taiwan, everywhere else got stores, Thailand got a store, China of course has their store, and I know you love that. And then, you know, they moved on to the West Coast having LA in time, and now they just opened one in Miami. So if you're in the United States, you can go to Miami, New York, or LA to a Bape store. Now, I have been petitioning, I have been just gathering souls to get San Francisco store. We need a store in San Francisco for all the hip hop heads. And you know why Bape and Billionaire Boys Club and ice cream are so important? They're like the staple brands of hip hop right now. They're doing the best in sales, and you're starting to see them everywhere. They went from something that was like $100 a tee now down to $50 a tee, and now it's a little more affordable. So.
I'm sorry, the way you said that, it was like gathering souls, remind me of the reveal video of Melina for Mortal Kombat 11. It was like, why are you here? 1 million souls cried out for my return. I could now see that for Bape.
Right?
1 million souls cried out for this store's existence.
I'm serious. It's that serious. And Tone knows, you know, this is one of our favorite brands. He rocks it all the time, too. Looks like one of the old WWF title belts, but it's a side.
Well, it's the size of it in the middle, yeah,
Definitely.
that's for sure.
I love it. Bape's one of my favorite brands. As you can see, every episode I'm usually draped in it somehow. And yeah, it's our favorite store to stop by in Japan. So we'll be back soon on the next Strike First Gaming tour. Coming to a theater and city near you.
Man, I definitely gotta go to Japan.
You got it.
Another reason to go to Japan.
This is tournament ready. This is tournament ready. It's ready for your joystick, all your, if you go into the arcade, all your change and
Okay, I want to see you fit something in there.
Oh, you know what?
You want the fight stick mini? One of the minis could go in there, like the Hori.
Your Switch and all that stuff you want here for sure.
the mini Hori.
At least like mini Hori, I can see in that one. Yeah,
One plush,
that's
just
true.
put that in there on the side.
Yep. It's practical and it's stylish. I like stuff that you can use in tournament. This is great for when you're on a trip. You can put your battery packs in there. You can do all your stuff like that. Your wallet, your keys, all your stuff, so you're not carrying it in your pockets.
Well, that's what, exactly what they do in Japan.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. This is useful. I like this.
All right, hey, if it wins Cookie's vote, it gotta be dope.
Cookie approved.
Cookie approved.
Right, I should put the C for approval.
You need a new stamp. You need a big boom.
Yeah.
So how long ago did this bag come out?
This bag is a 2021 release this year.
Oh, okay.
I just had this
Okay.
one in the beginning of the year. Yeah, it's for the spring 2021.
So that's why it's not
so
too
it's
crazy
fresh.
in price right now. And
Yeah.
then it'll steadily climb over the years.
Yep, it will. And I love it. It has good material and it's fresh. Back to you. in the studio. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you. This was the latest from Dr. B, Galaxy B, and his fashion tips. I like this. All right, moving on to you, Inferno Spyro. What I'd like to know from you, for the audience out there, is what is your next commentating gig, or what is your goal in terms of competing in fighting games as of late, since we're dealing with this whole COVID?
So, I mean, at the time, originally, I did commentating as a way to give back to the community, because I kind of think of like the North Cal FGC as like my second family. You know, they've done a lot for me in terms of like, you know, I currently live in like F Champ's house, and then usually they've helped me move, or, you know, whenever I'm, you know, in a bind, they've been they treated me well, so it felt like, you know, it was a way for me to like give back to the community and, you know, kind of help out whenever I could most of the time. Usually yearly we had the Combat for a Cause. So like usually when we competed for free, it was mainly for prizes, you know, for like top 3 and stuff like that, but all the money went to like a particular charity depending on the theme. Okay. So originally we did like breast cancer awareness in October, like a couple of years back. We did one for mental health awareness, and then we also did one for Make-A-Wish.
Yeah.
So I hopefully, like, when offline events return, that, you know, I'll be able to do those a lot more often, because usually they like having me on there. So at least for like the Tekken side of things. So hopefully, you know, we get the chance to have more opportunities in that regard. But also, I think like the most recent big commentating thing that I've done aside from like the online tournaments was Fanime. So I went to Fanime last year. They had a Tekken 7 tournament originally, so I was like, okay, I'll show up, you know, because I never really, that's like my first time at like an anime convention.
What?
Yeah. This is my first time ever. Like I usually see it like every so often, but I never actually like went into one myself. So it was a treat. So I kind of had a chance to, you know, look around, because I only bought a ticket for Sunday, because that's when they had the tournament.
Okay. So
they had Smash first, then they had Tekken, and then Soulcalibur. So I signed up for both Tekken and Soulcalibur at that time. And originally we didn't have the main stage. So when we...
You were in the gaming section, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were, yeah. That's where, with anime cons, it's like fighting games, they have like a big arcade area.
Yeah.
And then a side of that is tabletop. The other side of that is like FGC fighting games and where the tournaments are.
Yeah, because they were kind of doing some of the like other stuff like Siege and Overwatch, some of like the big stuff that people would probably know about compared to fighting games.
Which was probably controlled by AFK, because they was doing all that computer stuff. Yeah.
So, you know, when it got close to top 8, we fought for it to be on main stage. And luckily, they had a time slot to where they could fit it on there. But it was only the top 6. So I made top 8. I lost. I lost to somebody from Seattle, so I was like, no!
You're right there.
I was right there.
Right.
So, you know, they were doing the top 6. They originally, at the time, you know, one of the people that was originally commentating, because they were, at the time, I didn't know about it, because they were doing it on the actual floor. Like, they weren't doing it like, you know, regular style like you would normally see at a major.
Right.
So they needed help for commentating. I was like, okay, you know, and then a lot of my friends that, you know, went to Fanime at that time, they recommended me to commentate, because I was already starting to do it at like Sharkade, and then, you know, when we had like the Wednesday night fight stuff and everything like that, I started to do it a little bit more often. So they recommended me for it. I was like, okay, yeah, I can do it, no problem. And it wasn't until I realized that we got toward like the actual stage that it was, you know, in front of people. I was like, oh snap, because usually, you know, when I was younger, I was a very shy kid. So most of the time I avoided like any sort of like, I wasn't as social with everybody, especially like with women. Like normally I would freeze up whenever like a woman would approach me, so it kind of had like those little nuances. I've gotten better as time went on, you know, when it came to like my first job and all this other stuff, so it kind of built up towards like commentating and, you know, being able to come out of my comfort zone to do that. And
speaking of which, that's right. Now that you brought up your job, if I'm right, you was working at the Casino Matrix for a good minute, right?
Yeah, I was working there before.
So you mean to tell me we couldn't get a Tekken tournament at Casino Matrix?
We tried. we tried, because like I was kind of pushing for it, and like a lot of them were kind of it's just because around the time the original owner died, so they had a new transition to a new owner.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, this was like a year or so ago. So they made that, when they were making that transition, that was more of a priority when, you know, that sort of, like, I kind of proposed that sort of thing to kind of bring people in, because Dave and Buster's was kind of doing that with, like, Street Fighter every so often when Joe did the tournaments and stuff. So I figured it would be, like, a good way to kind of, you know, give Tekken, like, you know, some shine, and, you know, because some people were visiting from, like, Strong Style and stuff like that. There's some places to eat around here. I was kind of offering up some of the pros and everything like that. You had, like, the international people come in too, and they want to gamble.
Yeah.
Because, you know, normally, like, in, you know, some Asian countries, that's really, you know, not legal. So most of the time people get to enjoy themselves whenever they visit, like, other countries and stuff like that. So I was offering up all these pros and everything like that. They, you know, most of the big heads were, like, on board with it, but, you know, obviously due to the transition, it kind of, like, you know, messed up everything. So I was like, you know, it's not that bad. But in terms of, like, the fanime stuff, a lot of it was just, like, improv, because I wasn't used to, like, speaking in front of, like, an audience. And, like, you see, people were, you know, when it comes to, like, people that aren't necessarily, like, interested in fighting games, or, like, they're brand new to it, they're, like, within the casual level, because usually Tekken 7's pretty good to look at. It's easier to follow. Not that many people are, you know, confused as to what's going on, so it's a lot easier. It's easier on the eyes. So, you know, when you're trying to enhance that experience, you kind of want to avoid, like, notations and, you know, like, the more complex stuff. Like, obviously, like, punishing and stuff like that, like, you can't avoid some of those terms, so, but it's easier to follow in that regard. But normally you would have to, like, name moves yourself, kind of have, like, a lot of improv, and people were enjoying it a lot. I think there was, like, halfway into the actual stream that, like, I looked back and the whole audience doubled in size since when I last looked. I was like, oh. But I had a good time, and, you know, a lot of people were enjoying it. Even the staff, you know, they wanted me to come for the next fanime before the pandemic happened. Like, they offered me the card and everything, so if I wanted to commentate for Tekken again, so it seemed like it was more of a success in that regard, to where we got fighting games on the main stage. People ended up enjoying it, and it's something that, you know, could be an option for them to look to down the road, instead of, like, shooters. Or, you know, something else that's more mainstream that people seem to, you know, invest more time into.
And that's cool, because that was a year that I actually missed. I ended up going to Combo Breaker in Chicago, and I missed the last two Fanimes in person because I was competing in Chicago.
So that was the main reason why I went to Fanime, because I wanted to go to Combo Breaker that year, but obviously due to, like, financially, you know how the Bay Area is kind of expensive in general, so I was trying to at least save between, like, Combo Breaker or Evo, because I went to Evo almost every single year since 2014. So I was like, okay, you know, I'll just take the L for now, and then save up for next year to go to more tournaments and stuff like that.
Awesome.
Before the pandemic happened.
Well, thank you. Well, we look forward to seeing more of your adventures.
Definitely.
Okay. And also, one more thing, so, you know, people can, when they want to follow you on Twitch, how can they find you on Twitch and on Instagram?
So, for Twitch, it's pretty much the same thing, Inferno Spyro, no spaces. I do have an Instagram, it's the same thing, but usually I normally promote that through, like, my YouTube and stuff like that. When I do my YouTube or my Twitch, I usually use my socials to kind of promote, you know, certain games and stuff like that normally people don't get to see that often.
Okay, so on YouTube, it's
you know, most of the socials now are, like, Inferno Spyro. I had to, like, completely rebrand everything when I initially made the name. It took me a while, because initially I just had Spyro and 4 numbers across immediately after. So it took me quite a bit to kind of get something that would, you know, roll off the tongue. People still mess up the name, though, but at the very least, people know me.
Well, when your viewers see this, they won't fuck it up this time.
I think Twitter's the only different one. It's just Spyro9824, obviously, due to when I made the Twitter a long time ago. You make it once, you can't really change it. So I'm kind of just stuck with the Spyro9824 username handle, but it's still renamed as, you know, Inferno Spyro. So you can, I mainly am on there more than anything, but I usually use, like, the Reddit and Instagram and stuff like that to kind of promote.
Awesome. Well, thank you. All right, moving forward, Kitty, what's going on in cosplay?
Actually, not much right now. Just doing my own thing, but it's it's something that we were talking about the last show that I wanted to continue on. And being a cosplayer, again, love figures. You're talking to somebody, you know, just like you know, Cobra Kai, like, we love collecting figures. And a lot of people know me. I'm the girl who has the room that looks like a store in Akiba, because I've got display cases and I have all of these different gotchas and figures that I've been collecting for like the past 30 years, ever since I was little. Some of my pride and joys are actually like, I have the Street Fighter Zero Canon Ryu, and they're about this tall and they're fully clothed. And just like some of those old school Third Strike figures that actually had like cloth articles, that was like such a big deal when they came out. The fact that I went to stores like Frankensons and Game Cave to like get these items. And there's actually a couple of Capcom dolls that got away, and they are the Vampire Hunter Darkstalkers. There was a Morgan, a Felicia, and a Dimitri. They were about this tall. Dimitri, his cape was fabric. Morgan actually had like doll hair, and the Felicia was gorgeous. She was the most plastic one. She didn't really have any fabric or anything. And they had a figure of her, and her nails were broken, and a part of her hair was chipped. And they were still trying to sell her at that time in the late 90s for like $80. Like, I wanted to get this whole collection, and funny enough, you guys are bringing up Fanime. Fanime, one awesome thing about Fanime, and I don't know if you went, but did you go to the Fanime swap meet?
I did. Well, yeah, because like they had like the little sections of food and everything like that. And I was like, man, I just don't have the money right now, because like that's what I wanted to do next year, was actually experience it a little bit more and kind of, you know, dive myself deeper into that.
Well, the swap meet is actually outside in a separate building from the convention center.
That's
so,
where
like,
they have the hemp con.
Oh, so I probably was
you
looking
had
at a
to go.
different-
Yeah, you were probably just looking at the dealer's hall.
Yeah.
But that was next. They always have the food in the dealer's hall in there, because our friends at Okamoto Kitchen, you know, are always there. Yes, good old Okamoto, FGC,
Yes,
delicious
sir.
food. Anyways, gotta rep Okamoto Kitchen. They're the homies. So, anyways, but if you go outside of the convention center, there's that other little side building where they have like events or expos there too, and that entire building is dedicated for the Fanime swap meet.
Oh, okay.
I love shopping at the Fanime swap meet more than the dealer's hall. Why? You guys, there are so many gems that people have that they've been holding in, you know, tubs or whatever. I have friends that have been collecting like all the like 80s toys, the He-Man toys, the My Little Ponies and everything, and they go there and they wheel and deal. Then they get like a few grand, and then they'll go like buy the main figure they wanted, you know, in the dealer's hall or whatever. But the Fanime swap meet is wonderful because you can find so many rare gems. I've been searching for one gotcha collection for a long time. I got it there for $5. This thing retails for like over $100 or even more for the entire set. Some dude's just selling it for $5. I got so many cool figures, especially like old retro figures. I got a couple. The last Fanime in 2019. I got like Bastard figures. I got little Capcom Darkstalker gotchas. I just got all sorts of great stuff. Even a rare Utena illustration book, the movie one, the big
I have
one.
that. I have that.
I got that for $13.
Yeah, speaking
It's
about
amazing.
that, speaking about that swap meet, it's the place to go for collectors. They try to organize it in a way where all the toy sellers are in one spot, all the anime sellers are in one spot, and all those that are selling music and console games are in another spot. And that is the place you want to be for Friday. Because that is where all the deals is at. And in fact, some rare DVD anime box sets, since you're starting to rediscover classic anime for yourself, that's the place to go to get the DVDs, the laser discs, the VHS tapes, because you'll find them there between $2 to $5, at max maybe 30, 40, and it's a haggles union, so you can haggle with the people, especially if you're gonna, you know, buy multiple items.
Sadly
reasonable.
enough, a lot of weebs nowadays, they don't know how to haggle. So if you actually knew how to haggle, you have the advantage. Because a lot of people are too shy or too passive aggressive to be like, can I get this for like 20? There's a dent on the box. You know, like it's like forcing them with a gun to their head, trying to like get a deal for themselves. Like my friends, I have a few shy friends that can't, you know, haggle. So they're like, Kitty, come with us, please. And I'm just like, how much is that figure? All right, well, you know, it's kind of faded. Looks a little faded right here. There's a dent on the box. I'll give you 10 for it. 10 cash right now. And then they're just like, all right. So my friends are like, thank you, Kitty. We couldn't do that. These are the same people I take to the LA Garment District, also a haggling place. And the men there are more aggressive.
Yes.
So, and they'll always be like, how much fabric do you want? How much fabric do you need? And I'm just like, I don't need any. I'm just looking. No, I give you a good price. I'm just looking. Do you have this? No? All right, then I'm just looking. So, you know, you just have to, you build that up. If you know, you grow up in LA, you're part of SoCal. Haggling is just one of those things, from going to swamp meets to garment districts everywhere, growing up as a kid in LA.
It was almost to the point of harassment, because I was there to the garment district several times. And
Yes.
this one guy
another
walked
thing.
up to me to sell me rabbit fur, and it was fake rabbit fur. He's like, no, it's real. It's real. I'm like, no, it's fake. This is real fur. Yours isn't.
He picked the wrong person to tell. First of all, that was his first mistake.
It was bad too.
I have a
Nobody
question.
warned you.
Kitty, I have a question. So, speaking of fabrics and garments, what's up with your hoodie? That's such a sick hoodie. I just kind of wanted to get a little backstory on that.
So if you guys didn't notice already, this is my "Are you okay?" COVID outfit. So
Are you okay? Terry
this is my staying safe in Southtown outfit. I'm very proud of what I'm wearing. First of all, I want to thank my homie who bought me this off my Amazon wish list for my birthday. That was like last week. And if you guys want, I do have an Amazon store, and I do have a bunch of customized lists. And if you want to get this hat, it's in my list. It's in my cosplay list. So and my COVID safety list. So you can get the setup that I have. And I also got to thank another one of my friends, Matt, because this is the Terry Bogard "Are You Okay?" shirt.
I love that.
They got the whole set.
I tell you, don't mess with me and my SNK fashion. Now, I am going to tell you, I don't want to do this and make it awkward, so I'm just going to stand up, okay? I'm just going to stand up. I customized these Geese Howard leggings.
Wow, that's crazy.
No, it's not Attack on Titan, it's Geese. All right, come on.
Come on.
I got my leggings on. I'm very predictable in that sense, yes. And then this is what I was talking on one of the other shows. Let me get my hair out of the way. I have like 50 pounds of hair. I'm sorry, you guys, but anime hair. That's the life. All right, this is the official hardcore chocolate cross SNK hoodies that they have in Japan. Hardcore Chocolate is an awesome brand, and there's, you know, Ripper and Hopper and Thank You, and of course you've got the classic scene on the back.
Geese Howard. Look out at the boss.
In the chair.
So this, and I also, they have Hardcore Chocolate. Please look them up. You can buy them on the SNK online shop. You can get this through Zen Market. They have shirts of these prints. They have other hoodies. They have a really cool Metal Slug hoodie. They have a Mai Shiranui hoodie, which I have refused to open and wear yet. I think it's just going to be a collector's item with all of her artwork. And what I love about that hoodie is one of my favorite artists, Falcon. His artwork of her Maximum Impact outfit is on the front.
Really?
And it's really, really beautiful. Hardcore Chocolate has been working with SNK over the last few years. They premiered at Tokyo Game Show, and that's, you know, where this hoodie came from. Thank you, my little brother, for grabbing this for me when I couldn't go. So they have some really great items. Just, you know, it's Geese, so I had to get it to complete the outfit. But they have other characters. They also have Athena too. Yeah, Hardcore Chocolate has some really cool stuff, and the fact that they did a collaboration with SNK, it's really awesome that you can get like these really stylish clothes They have their own unique like style and brand to them, and of course different colors. Like geese came in my favorite colors, so I had to get it. But they do like the purples, black and whites, or the teals. They have an orange like based one for Metal Slug. I'll put up links and everything in the Discord so you guys can check it out and shop away, because they have some really cool SNK gear. And I've been waiting too long in my life to wear some badass like SNK based clothing, and I really love how SNK is doing this right now, because their merchandise over the past like 4 years has been pretty godlike for, you know, acrylics, keychains, clothing. They have the $400 beautiful Haomaru like Tsukijan jacket, all made of silk, fully embroidered and everything. Oh man, I could go on for days, but go on ahead, check it out on the SNK online shop. They have a Twitter, they're on Zen Market. You guys can find all sorts of neat goodies. The only thing I'm waiting to get, which a buddy of mine grabbed for me last year in Japan, was they actually came out with Terry Bogard, Kyo, and a few others hand sanitizers. So I'm just waiting for my Terry hand sanitizer, and I also got the Terry cologne. So
No. Are you okay to send?
yes,
Oh
it's
my God. Are you
bustable.
okay?
The scent,
Oh no.
the essence of
Are you
South
okay?
So again, and that stuff sold out. So you gotta be on top of this. It's amazing. I love what SNK is doing. But going back to our conversation from my outfit, it's that figures. What else do we love more than our merch? It's figures. And I would have loved nothing more if like Bandai Namco busted out some Soulcalibur 6 figures. Like they had everything else.
Yeah.
And you know, I was talking to somebody who works with them, and they're like, yeah, if there was merchandise that you wanted, what would it be? And I just dropped this list down to the floor. I'm just like, okay, first off, we need figures. Second of all, some shirts, some keychains, some acrylic badges, stuff to go into my Ita bag, you know, a couple of plushies of cute little side jokes. Maybe you want a little collection of the statue swords of everybody's weapons. Like, I just went off.
Yeah.
But I really, and I know ever since like he came out, the only reason I played Soulcalibur 6 is because of Gro. Gro came out, I got my hands on him at E3. I was like, this is my man. This is our future together. This is working, yes. So I would have loved, damn it, I would have loved a figure of him, something. We've got nothing.
Yeah.
If you were lucky, you got the promotional shirts.
I got it.
Me too.
The one with
One
the
of
stick
Ivy.
that looks like it's ketchup? I got that one.
Oh, no, that's an Arby's collab with him.
I got that one.
I got that one too.
Okay, yeah.
All right.
I had to finesse that one too. I had to finesse
I entered the same contest you did. I entered the same tournament.
Were we in the same pool or no? I saw you though.
No,
I saw you there.
of course you did, because
Yeah.
I had to play Grow. But,
Right.
you know, no.
I whooped a few people in that tournament. I still got a shirt.
Yeah, well, everybody got the shirt.
I don't believe
which
I was
great.
there for that. I'm missing this one.
This
know.
was
I just saw
Evo. This was Evo 2018, and they had the Soulcalibur exhibition tournament that they did. And if you were in it, you got a shirt. And the shirt, they were. That's when they were doing a lot with Arby's.
Yeah.
And so the Arby's did this really great T-shirt. It's a fight stick, but it's made out of Arby's sauce. And that was a shirt. The other Soulcalibur, I can't talk, Soulcalibur promotional shirts I'm talking about are if you went to any of the Ring Out events. We had one in SoCal, and it was really cool. They rented out this like studio space. You got to play the game. There were exhibition matches. You know, they had really cool food, and they also, like, if you got into VIP, you got an Ivy shirt. You got the Soulcalibur 6 Ivy shirt, and then everybody else who came to the event got a Voldo shirt.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
But that's it. Where's the rest of our Soulcalibur merch?
Yeah,
here?
Namco kind of dropped
You
the ball
know,
on that.
yeah, like and that's the thing. This is what I'm going to. It's just like these companies are losing, you know, connection with their fans and what we want, and what we want is figures. Like I am begging people at SNK to please make Sam Show figures. Like I need me a Darly dagger, okay? This big, you know, just
One chugging.
yes. I just want something to pray to every morning that is Darly, just like bless. But
She's
yeah,
so cheap.
I know, right? But the
It
thing
seems
is,
like we may have to save that for
we probably do.
a third part to your collab on talking about
yes.
toys.
Because again, these are key elements to the community. You know, I know figure making is expensive. A friend of mine was a former owner of PCS Toys, so I get like a lot of figure information and things like that from him, and talking to him all the time. And I know it's not an easy thing, but even I've asked him in the future, like if he does make another toy company, he's already asked me what do I want, and trust me, I've given him the list. I've given him plenty of lists for Soulcalibur and for Samurai Showdown. And right now there is a company in China that's actually making King of Fighter 14 figures, and they are amazing. And yeah, again, I'm gonna have to sell another organ to like get the whole collection, but it's gonna be worth it. You know, my car's not running, but damn, my room looks cool.
Right.
I think I talked to like Michael Currie about like in terms of the merch stuff.
Yeah.
And like he tagged like the actual like person that's kind of like in charge of that particular stuff. So hopefully like, you know, I might have to contact him and see if you know, we can get something going.
Yeah, send them my way. Please send them my way. I would love to talk and brainstorm.
Yeah, I can tell you that.
Wow.
Nice.
Well, thank you. Whoa, that was a lot. I guess we're gonna have to revisit this topic again with you about these toys.
I'm telling you, I've got like the anime sagas of topics here. They're just Dragon Ball continuations. We just got episode after episode.
It's gonna keep going
It's
forever.
gonna keep on going.
14 episodes, one
I
fight.
think in time. I think that in
On the
time.
next kitty segments. It's just,
I think in time, you know,
Yes.
eventually we'll get the toys that you're talking about. Because I would like to have a Darly Dagger figure, and of course
Yeah,
we
me
all
too.
want our Makoto figure from Samurai Spirits Warriors Rage, which will happen at some point, I believe. And I think at some point
because we only have
SNK.
one.
I think at some point SNK will finally release the 3D collection of the sagas that's actually hindering Samurai Spirits from being truly complete. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, thank you so much. And I'm still looking for that Mikoto figure. I kick myself in the butt every day I didn't buy it when I should have. But hopefully I'll get it, and hopefully I'll show it off here.
Cool. All right, and for today's mythological moments, I'm going to go into the latest release of what just got released on the Nintendo Switch, which is Nintendo's collaboration with SNK to release the Neo Geo Pocket Collection. So, what made the Neo Geo Pocket Color so great is that the buttons on it were convex. So this is how it looks. Thank you. They're convexed, and they stick out on purpose because it's two buttons, and what are you really going to do with two buttons and the option button over here? Options is really the menu button. It's really simple. It's not really much to it. It's really the menu button. But I guess for a lot of the fighting games here that you would play on this, you would tap A and get a light punch, press A, get a hard punch, tap B, get a light kick, and then press B and get a heavy. You know, and I guess the way they're trying to translate the game onto the Nintendo Switch is the buttons don't raise like this. So it's a little bit difficult to get that on the Nintendo Switch. Unless you have the Pro Controller. If you use the Pro Controller, then you can get that same effect that you get on this, because the buttons on the Pro Controller actually stick out. So, what most people don't know is...
I'm loving the fact that you have the outline sticker frames.
Oh,
and,
yes.
And you have...
That was a separate
yes.
that was a separate buy at one of the game stores in Chinatown in New York City. And what I have here is the link cable to transfer the information from SNK versus Capcom, which is what I'm basically talking about here. Is this was technically the second game of release in the Versus series of Capcom versus SNK. This was released before CVS 2 and right around the time that CVS 1 happened. So they came about the same time. So what makes this actually special is that there's a storyline that's ingrained in this that doesn't show up in the actual Capcom versus SNK game in the arcade, where the characters here have designated rivals. So Morrigan's rival is Nakaruru, and Sakura's rival is Yuri, and of course Kyo Kusanagi's rival is Ryu, and then Terry Bogard is Ken. It goes like that in order, and so on and so forth. And as you play the story mode, they exchange all this different dialogue that caters to them and their rival. And of course, to get the true ending of the game is if you beat your rival, you get to face the actual true boss of the game, which comes after Bison or Geese, which is either Violent Iori, Orochi or Yori, and then, or I think a True Akuma. So once you beat one of the actual main boss of the game, you get the real ending, and every character has a separate ending. And it's really cute because you get more of an ending in the pocket version of CVS1 than you do in the actual arcade. And of course, I wanted to bring this book out because this book is so important, because somewhere on one of these pages, it's in Japanese though. Oh, here it is. Here we go. It reveals. It's in Japanese, but it specifically talks about the secret between the Capcom version of Card Clash Fighters and the SNK version of the Card Clash Fighters, in which if you collect all 300 cards from this one and the 300 cards from this one, and then you transfer that data through this link cable right here into this Dreamcast with Match of the Millennium 99 or CVS1, the actual arcade game, you then can take the secret that they will get you in that game and retransfer that information back into this cartridge, back onto that handheld device, and unlock some secret characters. Something that I still have not yet to do today, only because getting all 300 cards from each of this game, which is a total of 600 cards, is very difficult to do.
Yes.
And here's another fun fact. I just realized that when I downloaded this game for the Nintendo Switch, they took this page out of the digital manual. They took this page out. See, I see everything.
But you can still unlock the characters though?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, because that page that tells you about that secret is right here. Right there.
Cookye and I have talked about this, making this one of our life bucket list missions to do, is actually take our Dreamcast, take our Neo Pockets, and actually collect all the cards and unlock all of these secret characters.
And this is another side card game here, which has nothing. You can't really transfer no data from this, and it's known as King of Fighters Battle to Paradise, which is another rare game that was only for the pocket. So maybe, perhaps we'll see an English translation of Battle to Paradise from SNK onto the Nintendo Switch and such. And you know, I wanted to bring this here to show that I have the link cable that goes into the back of the Dreamcast right here. Something in there?
Yep.
No, there's nothing in there. Yeah, and that's how the data is transferred. And this was my carry case from back in the day with my cheap $5 squiggle light, which of course was worthless. Now, of course, with all the new modifications and the technology, you can now get a backlit light with a new screen and see everything in the dark as if this was a Sega Game Gear.
Nice.
But much more efficient.
I'm actually in one of those communities on Facebook where they do that. So if you need any information, let me know, because I've been needing to do that too. And I'm terrible because I do not know where my back battery case is. Because I have the blue, stone blue camo one, the camo looking one, the stone one. And I need to find my little battery cover, but yes, I still have mine. I cherish my Neo Pocket. I love it so much. This was like one of the best devices.
Well, I'll tell you what, because I know I'm in the market to getting a new Neo Geo Pocket Color, and I really want the most rarest one that's out there, which is the Onitsuka Tiger collaboration with SNK. Onitsuka Tiger has the most rare version of the Neo Geo Pocket Color, and it's the striped tiger, and all on the long stamped on the back says Onitsuka Tiger.
Nice.
And I'm not a really big sneaker person. But my friend Chris Sandoval from back home, shout outs to Chris, back home in New York City and Brooklyn, continue to rep Brooklyn, is that he's a big Onitsuka Tiger sneaker fan because I guess Kenny Omega, that's like his favorite sneaker of all sneakers, and you can only get that in Japan. And I like things that are rare. I don't like things that are typical. So he kind of made me a Onitsuka Tiger sneaker fan.
I love Onizuka Tiger because they did the Tokidoki collaboration, and the sneakers I was wearing on one of the earlier shows, those were my favorite worn out, like Onizuka Tiger Tokidoki sneakers. Like, I love them. I have like 3 different pairs, but they're great. I'm hoping they come out with another collection soon because I need new shoes.
Cool.
Cookye.
Question.
For the Neo Geo Pocket,
Yes.
wasn't there like a all black design that predated that one, the original one?
Yes, the original one was in black and white, and they had all these different colors. They had like stone blue, stone black, stone gray. They had all these different colors. And in fact, some of the first iteration of fighting games, King of Fighters R1 was for that. And Samurai Spirits, the first game, was for that, which Shiki was an unlockable character in which you had to like press option and rotate this shit like 3,000 times to unlock her in black and white. No, I remember that. And then of course, they did the special release of the second version of Samurai Spirits 2. If you like pre-ordered the new Sam Show 2019, and you got it for Nintendo Switch. Yes, so that was pretty cool to see. But yes, they did. I wish they did more with the system. I have all the fighting games to this system. They're all now inexpensive. They once sold this at Toys R Us as a bundle package for like, I think about $100 or for $100. You got like 5 games in the bundle. They just couldn't sell it, and then SNK just didn't have any marketing for it in America.
Yeah.
For my birthday, my mom got me this. I remember I wanted a Game Boy Color because I wanted Killer Instinct. And instead, she got me this, and in the beginning, I was tight. I was mad. I remember I was like, I was ready
for Killer Instinct.
Right, I was ready, but then she got me 3 games, and I was kind of digging this handheld, and I was like, okay, but you know, SNK is really just SNK properties. Nintendo is, Nintendo is plural. They're versatile. You can have all kind of games for Nintendo. SNK is just SNK stuff, and their library ends at some point.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was the only thing that made me upset. And of course, as usual, with the Neo Geo Pocket Color, the library ends at some point.
Well, see, I had to get a Neo Geo Pocket Color because, CVS was just amazing. So when the Neo Pocket Color came out, I was like, I need this. I need Match of the Millennium. I need I need Gal Fighters. I need all the card game clashes. Like, I had to have it. So this turned out to be my favorite gaming system, and the fact that it had all the mini games and
the
everything.
original sticker
just,
price
like,
is
so
still
great.
on there. Yeah, this was sold for $70 back in the day. I remember.
And people are complaining still about
the original sticker
$70 for
price.
a damn.
Yeah, I
Like,
would.
come on.
I'm complaining now.
And
I'm what you call a baller. I'm complaining. I'm just saying.
I actually paid for it when they did the English translated versions. I had the English version of this, and I was saving my allowance. My mom gave me $5 a week, and it took me about several months because I knew they was coming out with this, and I was running to the store when I got out of high school, running to the game store to say, hey, please hold this for me, please hold this for me. I'm like $15 short.
Aww.
I'm now $10 short.
Yeah.
I'm now $5 short. I'm now 25 cents short. And the guy was really nice, and he saved it for me. And on one day, I was in high school, and during my lunch break, we get to go out for lunch. I had the money, and I ran over to Game Shop, and I got it, and came right back to school, and kept my lunch. I wasted my lunch to get this game, to just sit down and just read the book. I was all like this. I was like this. And the English book is actually thicker than this. It's like this, and I was like, "Ooh, this book is thick." I was all like this and everything. I was all like this. It was like
It's so real.
But it was at a time where cell phones didn't go on the internet. Everyone read books. People were more knowledgeable. People was ready to get because all the knowledge was in the book. Was ready to share it. you know, and that's how.
We had Game Informer. We
Thank
had
you.
EGM.
Oh, yes.
Okay, that's how we got our
Game
news.
Pro.
Okay, that's how we got our
there was no social
Like,
media yet.
No, there was
So I
not.
read-
EGM.
So I remember.
EGM.
You might as well say Nintendo Power. I mean, why
And
No,
not?
I was there for Nintendo Power.
I know, but you know that was in the olden days.
Days. The
olden
beginning,
days.
that was Funko Land days.
Right.
So,
And before.
Yes.
so thank you guys. That is my mythological moment and how this game, CVS for the Neo Geo Pocket Color,
a great
came
game.
to be and the story behind it. As Geese Howard teams up with Shadowloo Bison to sponsor the most strongest tournament in the world for martial artists, where of course they want to steal bodies at the end of the tournament and try to create themselves immortal.
Yep.
That's basically it. That's basically it. So,
That's it. Just steal bodies.
My
and
man
go.
Rugel's jealous.
you know, he's not even in the game. He's not
No,
even
he's
in
not
the
even-
game.
See, not even unlockable. Wow.
He's not even.
Damn.
They didn't even put him or Go It Nits. He's not even in the game.
Wow.
No.
No.
I'm mad at that.
Ooh, huh?
I'm not even a Rugal player, but I'm
The
terrified.
original collector.
Right.
Right.
So, which brings us to our discussion of the day. So this is, and I have to start off with a preface for this so we can understand what's going on. Just recently there was a documentary by Vice TV talking about the fighting game community. And that documentary showcased a little bit of New York, a little bit of LA, and just talked about how people got into the FGC while also touching on some of the discrimination that went on in the beginning for the LGBT community, for transgenders, and for women. And you know, in cosplay and playing video games amongst men, that was really a male-dominated esports before esports.
Yep.
And they try to address all of that in this two-part documentary while not really, while it seems like they forgot a lot of the history. And they didn't include a lot of details. They kind of just grazed over stuff and had only interviews from various sources. So with that being said, today's discussion is the discussing of the FGC, the fighting game community, or martial arts gaming community, and our duty to fulfill and fill in the missing gaps of that history. So what we're doing here is we're going to touch on how did we get into the martial arts gaming community and what did we contribute to this, because somehow we're missing in Vice's documentary, and I want to make sure that there are things that are not lost. So we have to start creating our own history so that these bigger names that are trying to write our history for us doesn't lose the details.
All right, let me start it off. So, for us in San Francisco, I grew up in Visitation Valley neighborhood, and Visitation Valley has a good amount of Asian population. So, when fighting games first came out, it was for us. It was Street Fighter 2, and the whole neighborhood was competing. So, whether it was at a liquor store, at a convenience store, wherever there was a Street Fighter machine, you would catch 50, 60 of us all waiting in line. It was even to the point where people even had just rented out just empty spaces and then put a couple arcades in, and we would just fill the room. So it was a lot of competition built from that. We had the kings of the neighborhood. We had the guys that were up and coming. We seen people come from nothings to they are the gods of the neighborhood. So we have our own our own area that we competed in, and then from Visitation Valley, we would go all the way downtown to Market Street and go down to Fun Center, and that's when you got to everyone. You know, all the kids from every neighborhood would go down to downtown San Francisco on Market Street at a place called Fun Center, which was basically like an open, almost like an old New York arcade. You know what I mean? Where it's just open to the street and then two sides, all the way back down. And then you would get everything. That's where our Mortal Kombat competitions were, everything. So for us, we have our own story. I know every region has their own story. San Jose, Sunnyvale, LA, New York, the Midwest, Chicago, Texas. Everybody has their own stories of who became the kings. And I think what we need to do is have someone oversee all the regions and try and put it together almost like a Wikipedia, but people can chime in, and it should be like, you know what I'm saying? It should be a a round table of people that come together and should be voted in, and then they can speak for the rest of us like how we do in the government. You know what I mean? Just to get the story straight, because there's a lot that gets lost in translation. Like, people don't know the kings of my neighborhood would go downtown and whoop on the kings of wherever neighborhoods, but they don't know our neighborhood because we're a small neighborhood in the southeast side of San Francisco. We weren't the Fillmore, we weren't all the, you know, the big popular areas. So I think someone should come together and try and piece it together. It may not work, it may work, but we should at least try.
Okay. All right.
Now, y'all just tuned into the grandfather of this conversation in this room.
Oh, I want to hear everything you got to say.
This can't be covered in one episode because it would take forever, but I'll give the short story of it. So I started playing in the fighting game community in the year 2000. I graduated high school in 99. I was 18 years old. 2000, I was a fresh-faced 19-year-old. I walked into a tournament named B5. It was from a series of tournaments called the B series, which is Battle for the Bay, which was ran by the fighting game titans like Jason Nelson, aka X Rolento, John Choi, Graham Wolf, Alex Wolf, the legends of Sunnyvale Golfland. They are the forefathers of all fighting games, and they are who kind of pioneered the scene in the West Coast, and not just the West Coast, the world, because that was the formation of EVO itself. So I walked into B5, the game of choice, CVS1, Capcom vs. SNK1. They also had Street Fighter 2 Super Turbo there, Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, and the biggest title of them all, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. I walked in the room, I saw the names like Jason Nelson, aka X Rolento. You see Jason Wilson there. You saw John Choi. You saw Graham Wolf. You seen Alex Valle, even though that pains me to say his name. It had a whole bunch of other people. Justin Wong, one of my greatest rivals. I mean, Duck Doe, the great champion of Marvel vs. Capcom 2. The list goes on. APOC, one of the greatest players who played Alpha series and Super Turbo as well. These are all the forefathers of the fighting game community total. So I'm walking in, seeing these guys, thinking I could hold a light to them, and I get my ass completely whooped. Like, I didn't fight any of the biggest names, but I fought the sub-bosses of those names. The very next year was the very first EVO, which was in 2001. I was at that tournament. I fought, did pretty decent, got whooped there again. EVO 2002 rolls around. I walk in. I started feeling myself a little more because I started going to Sunnyvale Golfland, playing against all the Titans. Made my way through the Capcom vs. SNK 2 because that's the second year it was out. I was fighting my way along. My name was up because I talked a lot of trash on the SRK forums, and for no one who knows what SRK is, it's shoryuken.com. Is where everybody was the forum where everyone shared tech and talked and everything, and posted their handheld camera videos and stuff. There were no YouTube or anything like that. I fought really hard. I made it to a prelim, and next thing you know, I hear Dr. B to the stage versus KSK from Japan, and I'm like, wait a minute, what? So I was like, my friend's like, man, you're about to fight someone in Japan. He's like, you gonna win? I'm like, I'm gonna crush him. So I get up on the stage. They get up on there. I'm on one cabinet, which is an American cabinet. It has this big, long, like 2 cables. It's connecting to a small sit-down Japanese cabinet. My opponent comes up. He gives me a bow. I give him a bow. We shake each other's hand. We sit down and play. And I make history that year. I'm one of the first and only Americans in CVS2 that year to beat a Japanese player. I went on to making it on the EVO DVD 2002. The very next year, I go to EVO 2003. I fight my way up. Next thing you know, the most predominant name in fighting games, Daigo to the stage versus Dr. B. So I'm like, everyone's coming up to me, you gonna win, you're gonna win? I'm like, I'm gonna crush Daigo. I'm like, Daigo who? I'm not afraid of him. Because no one's talking like this. Like, you know, I really got it from my sensei, X Rolento, aka Jason Nelson. He's like, B, don't ever be afraid of the Japanese players. Just play them like everyone else. Do what you do and make them confused. You know, take them out of the game. I got up there, fought Daigo. I did all this stuff no one's seen. The crowds, they're screaming. I hit him with a jab. It's crazy. I go down to a pixel of life with Daigo, the god of fighting games, in a best of 1. They did not let it 2 out of 3. It was only 1. And he beat me by a pixel. But the moral victory was like from Real Steel, the movie. Like, everyone's like, you're the man, man. You almost beat Daigo. Like, I had people come up to me, man, that match with Daigo's the best thing in EVO history next to Justin Wong's parry, you know, to this day. So that built some of the legend. And it opened the doors for more players to eventually beat the Japanese or hold a light to them. Because the very next year, Daigo got beat by a player named Ratio 1 Beatdown out of Canada. He stepped in and beat Daigo the very next year. And he tells me to this day, because I know Ratio 1, he goes, B, you open them up for me. Open up the armor so I can get him. Because he's like, everyone saw that he was vulnerable after you fought him like that. And you did it with S groove, the most unused groove in the game, that everyone thinks is weak, that everyone says is bad. I took it to the god of fighting games with it. These are small little stories that built over the years. So there's so many little stories that are big moments in EVO that Vice documentary didn't talk about. They didn't talk about Jason Nelson taking CVS1 to Chikyu Sodom in 2001 in the finals, being the American that steamrolled through everyone to get there and almost beat them. They don't get the stories of all the other organizers who were pioneers in like the transgender and gay community, like Cookye is, and like other people who've done
Ricky
so
Ortiz.
many. And Ricky Ortiz, one of my other rivals who's done big waves in the fighting game community and made huge impact that didn't get enough shine. The stories go on and on, so that's kind of like where the fighting game community started, but now where it's at is a totally different place. You have different people who are involved, you have different hierarchy, and you have different rules that are in play. So we could touch on this in further episodes, but yeah, it started off very grassroots. I mean, the FGC as a whole was about 500 people, and now we're at what? Thousands and thousands of people, millions worldwide. So it's grown exponentially.
Well, mine is not as crazy and you're giving me like a hard follow-up.
But it's a story. We want to hear the story. But it matters. It matters.
Almost
it
definitely.
matters.
So, I touched on it before. I kind of started off in 2014. Started with Dead or Alive. I was kind of in that sort of deal where, I wanted to play fighting games a little bit more often. I kind of ended up showing more of a competitive side to it. And originally I just played, with friends and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden there was one night where I ended up playing and like there was a whole lobby of people in like DOA 5 and like everyone was talking. But I was in a party chat. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna turn off the party for a second. I start talking to everybody. I'm, conversing, we're making friends and stuff like that. So like one of the few people that, I ended up making friends with, he's from like the Michigan area. So like I ended up meeting a lot more people from that particular area, like further on, like currently now, that I usually talk to very often. Shout outs to the Michigan FGC, because they actually wanted me to come, eventually down there and play some games. I've been recently playing with in Tekken a lot of the Michigan FGC, and they're just like, man, like where you live at? I was like, I live in California, because this is when like the netcode kind of hit for like season 4, and they're just like, man, it's like 5 bars from here. I was like, I can't believe it. And it's kind of like, I think over time when I've been in the FGC is not as long as everybody else has, but I've kind of gotten this sense of, more memories and more friends that, I have ever could hope to really dream of. Because as a military brat, most of the time I'm moving off in like a couple of years or something like that. So it's kind of hard to adjust to a new environment, make new friends. And then on top of that, I was shy back then. So it was kind of just like a lot of things rolled into one. And it kind of, it took a while for me to finally get out of my comfort zone. I'm glad that I did with the actual like fighting game community. So I've been to like EVO almost every single year, obviously with the recent events and stuff like that, and the pandemic, not last year. Originally when I first went to EVO, I didn't play anything. This was when Tekken said, like, I didn't really have like a game yet, because this is when they had DOA as a side game. So I ended up signing up only for that year. And then they had the Tekken 7 announcement, which was leaked. So like Harada was just like, oh snap, I gotta make like a trailer, because it got leaked by IGN. So he ended up making a 30-second trailer. It was all in English. So like I was like, I'm getting like this weird like Tekken motion picture vibes, like the animated movie from like Kazuya and Heihachi's interactions and stuff like that. And I've always been like a Tekken fan since it's from the beginning. Like Tekken 3 was like the very first fighting game that I ever touched, while Spyro being the first game that I ever played in general. So so I ended up owning the PS1 first before I played like the Sega Genesis. I still have the Genesis. And I have my Nintendo 64 still, some of like the older consoles before the PS1, but I ended up getting the PS1 first because, they gave it me for my birthday and stuff like that. So I've owned almost every single Tekken series. I think 2 is the only one I don't have physically, but like almost every other Tekken I've owned physically. And I wanted to have that as like some sort of collection, you know, kind of like a, you know, a memento for like one of my favorite series of all time.
I have to.
So obviously with the trailer and everything like that, it sparked my interest, and it was like the actual first competitive game that I actually wanted to dive into in terms of like learning the game, like frame data, like mind games, learning to actually be competitive in the actual game. Because I feel like I never really took it to that level for DOA 5. It's like I was on that borderline of being competitive mentally, but like casually I was, you know, I wasn't at that level yet to, you know, compete with the best. So I figured Tekken, you know, it kind of like put 2 and 2 together. It's like Tekken 7 gets announced, you know, in terms of like changing the brand, in terms of, you know, wanting to have Tekken as like my very first game that I wanted to, you know, take and like go more in depth with. And, you know, I'm kind of surprised considering the fact that like I started off, you know, 4 years ago up until now, that the progress that I've made in terms of, you know, learning everything. And, you know, a lot of people have praised me for, you know, the amount of progress that I've achieved. And it's been a long road. I've gotten beat more times than I could count. You know, like my very first stream experience was like SCR at 2017, I believe. It was against Bing Chang.
Okay.
So like it was like my first time on stage, so it was a mix of like excited and being nervous at the same time. So I'm like, oh, you know, I'm still kind of learning the game, and I'm playing against like one of, you know, arguably one of like the killers in the tournament, and you know, I got destroyed. It was an interesting experience for me. Like I've taken the losses as like a learning experience. I never really got like too mad. I get mad at myself more often, thinking that, you know, I can compete with these people. I don't really need to necessarily look at the names per se, like, you know, Arslan Ash or like Anakin or Jimmy J. Tran. I don't really look at the names so much. I just, you know, want to play, you know, to the best of my ability 100%. And, you know, what, you know, all I can do is all I can do. And then over time, like the year afterwards, I ended up playing Nishi from Japan. And this was more of like more of a closer matchup. It was still like, I'm still learning matches. Like the game has like almost 50 characters now, with like the inclusion of a Poland character. So obviously matches are like the biggest plateau for me right now, due to like each character having 100 plus moves and stuff like that. So it'll take a while, and then getting my reactions. I feel like my reactions are another thing that I need to work on as well to be an overall better player.
Cool.
But, you know, it's been a good experience to me, and, you know, I feel like, you know, aside from like being a player and then being a commentator, kind of just seeing how far I can go with it. And, you know, luckily I'm kind of like in the middle of the new age and then the old age, kind of like in between. So I was able to get a lot more knowledge from some of the old heads here locally in the area to kind of get more history and, you know, appreciate some of the stuff back then in terms of like the arcade era. And then, you know, kind of like working and learning on your own, that sort of thing. You know, aside from like, you know, technology's advanced so much since like the early 90s. Now you have like YouTube and all this other stuff to like, oh, see, I can do a combo now. I can learn all this other stuff. Otherwise, you would be researching through like different forums, like the Mishima Zaibatsu shut down last year. So that was like one of the OG forums that people would go to, and I ended up going to personally for like information at first before Tekken 7 launched.
Wow.
And I ended up coming in at the end of like Tag 2's life cycle. So I would kind of practice on Tag 2 before the game came out. But I realized that, you know, I talked with some of the people that, you know, knew Tekken a lot longer than me, and that Tag 2 didn't really do so well in the scene. Like, I kind of looked at like past tournaments, and it seemed like more of a side game than anything, so it wasn't a main game. So I'm kind of you know, grateful that it's gotten a resurgence, and, you know, you're able to put Tekken 7 out there, and, you know, as like one of the big heads again, you know, along with like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat or, you know, KOF. You know, it's able to, you know, get more traction now than it used to be.
Awesome. Okay.
Dope.
Well, I started backwards. I didn't discover martial arts gaming until later. My mom had systems. She had console systems that were given to her from her husband. She had an Atari and she had a regular Nintendo, and on Atari I played Pole Position 2. And on the Nintendo, I played Mario like everyone else until my Aunt Wendy introduced me to the greatest puzzle game in Japanese history, which was The Adventures of Lolo, which was the Iggerland series in Japan. So I didn't play martial arts games until my cousin Thabiti got his Super Nintendo, and I went to New Jersey to his house and discovered Street Fighter 2 there. And I was confused because the controller was different and it had 4 buttons and then 2 buttons on the side. In fact, I'm going to take these off because I really remember doing this, you know, and I didn't, at the time, he was selecting the characters for me because I couldn't remember the names, so I'll be like, I want to play with the person with the blue underwears. You know, and that was Honda. No, this is what I said. This is what I said back then when it came home. It was released for Super Nintendo, and then I remember I said I want to play with, you know, I want to play with the guy that flies across the screen and does hot dog, you know, which was Bison, you know, and then I remember the last time I asked BT, I said, I want to play with the yap, yap, yap girl. She says, yap, yap, yap. I don't know what she's saying. She says, yap, 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 you know. You know, and that was Chun-Li until I was able to remember her name. No, until I was able to remember her name.
Yeah.
So, like, as a kid, I had very little friends. I was getting bullied at school, and so video games was my comfort. And so I would play games after doing my homework, and I would memorize all the lines to my favorite TV shows, and I would memorize the lines to the video games, and I would create a spiritual connection between me and the characters on screen. And that's kind of what began, how people know me as the person who recites and sings the music and does everything with the games. I've been doing that ever since I was 5 years old, from pole position, you know, and I was even doing all that. So you can say I'm a modern age person from that old movie called Police Academy.
Oh yeah, you're Jonesy.
You know, I'm basically the transgender version of Jonesy, but doing that in martial art fighting games. You know, and over time, as I had to go to New Jersey to play Street Fighter, you know, I asked my mom. I said, "Yo, can you put me in martial arts school?" And, you know, I said, "I'm tired of getting beat up at school. You know, I'm getting bullied and people, you know." I was having issues with teachers, and then, you know, kids walk up to me, boom, punch me in the face, and teachers don't do anything. So I would ask, you know, Mom, I wanna learn how to fight like the yap 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 girl. You know, my mom said, huh? Yeah, I want to do this, you know, and of course BT kind of translated for me what I was trying to say. And that's kind of how my mom put me into martial arts. So the performing arts, the martial arts, video games all came together as a triangle for me. And as I was getting better in Taekwondo, which is what she knew at the time, I was merging that with what I saw in video games and emulating that in real life. Until I got suspended one day at school for getting into an actual fight and doing what I actually saw from the video game, you know. And I even remember too, because I remember getting into a really bad fight and I was doing everything I saw from the Street Fighter 2 game. And the teacher broke up the fight, you know, and then I ran off and I jumped him and I was like, you know, I was doing all that. I did everything. I remember.
Crazy.
Well, I'm not gonna keep it real, you know. You know, this is exactly what I did, and then things just kind of snowballed from there. The game of choice back then for me was Mortal Kombat 2. I think I had phases with each fighting game that I was introduced to. I had a different phase. For Street Fighter, it was Chun-Li. For Mortal Kombat 2, you know, it became Katana, and I, you know, got suspended again for making paper fans, you know.
I was about to say, I hope you didn't get suspended for doing that uppercut.
That, you know what, that didn't come later until Mortal Kombat 3, because at the time, I tried to in sewing class and home economics. In home economic class, I tried to make Cindel's jacket. I tried to make her jacket with the bubble jacket that she wears and the neckline and all of that. And it just looked like a vest with a ripped hole.
Oh no.
And yes, you know, it was so bad because when I did have an altercation with one of the students who was bothering me at the sewing machine, we really did have a tussle on the ground, you know, and of course the teacher breaks up the fight, and then I'm standing there, and then I go, ah! I do this fucking scream, like say down to everything. I did that, you know, and then I actually ran up to the the name of the bully. His name was Dicto Castillo.
Dicto Castillo. It sounds like a character from Star Wars.
He was Dicto Castillo. No, he was. I have a photogenic memory. So he was Puerto Rican, and I did everything. So and at the time that was my phase at the time. So like the run button, I really did. I actually did the run button. I did all of that. If I was caught on camera, I swear to God, if I was caught on camera,
all of this mentally.
If I could caught on camera back in the day, the live action phase of that part of my life ended with Orchid of Killer Instinct when I was doing cartwheels outside because I wanted to do backflips. That stuff didn't change professionally until I actually had real training to do that stuff. But the kid stuff ended with Orchid from Killer Instinct. But I would say my highlight in competitive gameplay came from really Street Fighter 3 in '96 because I was so excited that Capcom put their first black female in a game. Mm-hmm. And God, she was whack. But I played with her because Chun-Li wasn't there. I was upset that she wasn't there, but I said they finally put an African woman in the game, and she's not angry, So I'm like, every time they put like one of us in a video game, we're angry, we're disgruntled, we're uneducated, and
Right.
I would say the Japanese, as I got more introspective as I got older, I see how the Japanese was handling their video games. And Elena, the first black female of Street Fighter, is from Kenya, which was colonized by England at one time. So they had they had a British education, which I see why they did what they did with her character in the game.
And then Dudley?
And Dudley's from England. He's British black.
Yeah.
So he's educated, he's refined. Thank you. Which is actually what they did to weed out the stereotype of black people in martial arts gaming. Mm-hmm. So with Elena, I stuck with her all those years as they updated the engine to Street Fighter 3 on the CPS3 up into Third Strike. So by the time Third Strike came out, I was doing things in tournaments that for the first time I was getting recognized, because I was only recognized as this is the nerd that plays the game, that makes the noises, and he's good, but we don't understand him. He's an anomaly. But it wasn't until Street Fighter 3 came out, Elena kind of changed all of that for me, while I'm still doing the craft to this very day, as people see on camera. Mm-hmm. It's now, I'm not the video game nerd that has Down syndrome. I'm now, oh wow, he is the performing artist, and you're gonna get the show while I'm playing the game, because he's totally in sync. And I remember the best commentary I ever got was when I got second for the Fighting EX Layer tournament at Jabali's tournament in Florida as CEO, because it was Jayuna who was commentating, and I heard him as he was commentating. He's like, you should see Cookye now. He's totally in sync with Hokuto. He's singing the music, and he's saying all the stuff with the character, and he's winning.
It's fun watching you play, Cookie.
So
it's very fun.
he actually put it in the light I always wanted it to be. If only that could have been said back when it mattered, when Mortal Kombat 2 came out in '93. You know, but hey, I'll take it now that I'm 36 and I'm no longer 10.
Right.
Now I know the origin. I was like, he usually does the performing arts and stuff, but I never really knew the story behind it. Now I know how you
That's how all of that.
fully assimilated to every single character that you enjoy. Now, okay, no.
So, and with each game, I have someone special that I connect to. So, for you in Tekken, it's always been Anna Williams, and Marvel, it's Psylocke, and SNK, it's Vice, and King, so yeah. So that's my story. Still playing to today. So, okay, your turn, Kitty.
Hi. Honestly, I relate to you so much with your story because I was bullied as well. I wanted to learn martial arts because I grew up watching Hong Kong cinema, Jackie Chan, and Jean-Claude Van Damme. And so I was always like tugging on my dad's sleeve, being like, Dad, I want to do that. I want to do that. I want to do those kicks. And he was like, okay, you're 8 right now, so let's wait till you're a little older. And then as I got older, again, not too many friends, and then my best friends moved away. I really didn't have anybody. I was always playing my Sega. I was always playing Nintendo, getting bullied a lot. And as I got older into high school, it got worse. But, what did I have? I had, the power of anime and fighting games on my side. And I fell in love with watching these animes based off of fighting games that I'd be playing in the bowling alley or in the arcades or James games because that was the most popular place that was around us. And I found Fatal Fury. I found, I found King of Fighters, Fatal Fury. And I fell in love with Mai as much as I fell in love, with the Darkstalkers. You had Morgan, you had Felicia, this happy cat girl. And, they are parts of my personality that I just love. And the same with Cookie. I would, do their poses, try to do their hairstyles, for Halloween. I'm not even going to show atrocious outfits I tried and failed at making, especially, and there are people who are waiting for these blackmail photos, and you will never find them. You will never find them. So anyways, but before, and this was in the late 90s, and I'm just a kid, trying to cosplay. I did not know what cosplay was. I did not know the word at all. It was until 2001. I debuted as Mai Shiranui, and again, this is one reason I love SNK so much. I would not have my career if it wasn't for Mai. If it wasn't for SNK, I would not have the almost 20 years of cosplay, filming, and gaming I have. I know people boast that they're 10-year this and that. I'm like, honey, I was at E3 in 1999. Where were you? Okay, I'm gonna boast 20-year if you're gonna boast 10-year in the FGC.
I dreamed about
seriously.
that stuff from the East Coast.
And I saw E3 in EGM magazines. They did coverage. And I'm just like, Dad, I want to go here. Just as much as I said, Dad, I want to learn martial arts. And it wasn't until I was getting bullied really bad in my teenage years that he put me in Shotokan Karate. Funny enough, he did the whole, computer systems for this dojo. This dojo was sick as all hell. It was so cool. It was a Shotokan dojo, just like Ken and Ryu. It was Shotokan. And they also did different martial arts afterwards. And it was a 2-story dojo. And then where you trained was a wooden floor that was surrounded by a Japanese fence, and you had to bow when you entered and everything like you were going into a temple or something. It was amazing. The guy really liked my dad, so he's just like, hey, you and your daughter want to train here, for years, down the road, go for it. So I'm just like, all right, awesome. I went into Shotokan because I'm like, I'm going to be like Ken. I love Ken. And beat the shit out of people who are bullying me. I'm trying to protect myself like Ken.
Right.
I hate this class. I'm just doing this and horse dances for 45 minutes. Am I going to do this when someone comes at me? No. I need something more effective than this. And then the kickboxers came. The Muay Thai fighters would come in after. The MMA, the kickboxers, the Muay Thai fighters would come in after the Shotokan class was done. And they came in, they started training, they started beating the shit out of bags, they're going at it with each other, and I'm just like, oh, this is what I want. this is what I've always wanted. This is the favorite anime characters that I love that are beating the crap out of people and saving the day and stuff like that. So I decided to become a Muay Thai kickboxer. And it was great. There is one scene in the Fatal Fury OAVs where Terry's drunk off his ass. Surprise, surprise. And he gets into a fight and someone punches him in the face. And he just stays there and takes it and looks at the guy and smiles. And I had my moment like that when I was sparring with one of my senseis. And that's how I learned how to take a punch. So when a girl tried to take a punch at me in high school, I was just, my guard was already up, and I just moved back and decked her back like Terry did. Straight bust a wolf, busted her lip, and then the fight was over. So it's just like, thank you, Fatal Fury and anime and martial arts. And, you know, later on, I decided, you know, people told me all the time, there's this thing called Comic-Con. Back then, there was only one Comic-Con. It was San Diego Comic-Con. Everyone else was a different name, okay? Nobody always just put Comic-Con at the end of your convention. So they're like, you really need to go to this. You'd fit right in. You would love it. They have like all the stuff that you buy, you know, they have the figures and everything. You should go. So that's how I broke out into cosplay. We did Capcom versus SNK. It was my ex at the time. He was Yun and I was Mai. And we did a whole fight choreography on the stage. Back then there was a ton of bias at the convention where anything fighting game or anything anime hardly ever got awards unless it was mainstream. But it was okay because we won over the crowd. I even did Mai's pose where she pulls her tails away and turns and does a cute pose with her umbrella when she, you know, wins. And I did that in the beginning of our fight. So yes, I showed my ass and my thong to the entire crowd and they lost their shit. Ever since then, and this is before social media, you guys, all right? There was no social media, there was no websites, there was like nothing, okay? You were lucky to get like 2 forums and I was on them for cosplay. So that's how my career exploded. They're like, this chick is like Mai in real life, all right? She's Nippon I Ching, she's throwing the fan, she's doing the taunt, she's catching it, she knows martial arts, she's kicking all over the place as my, oh my god. And this is what I feel the Vice documentary missed. Again, we're talking about all the aspects that make this community. I refused to watch the documentary because I saw it was top players. Congrats to the top players I like that made it in there, but there's so much more to the rest of us. You're missing out of the grassroots, you know, the thing that holds us together as a cosplay community, and that's also us cosplayers, because as much as I have these stories that I'm telling you of how I got into it, martial arts and all these fighting games, I would go to E3 all the time. I would play amongst people. I didn't know they were pros or not. They're beating my ass, but it didn't matter because I was enjoying being there and playing these fighting games and dressing up as these characters. And I have like, and this is another thing Vice has done, you know, I believe they've skimmed over cosplay, they've skimmed over the furry community a little bit, but they're not getting into the depths of like the people who pioneered and paved the way for cosplay today to be a mainstream word.
For Sonic Fox is down on the plateau that he's on right now.
So here's one thing I want to show you guys. You guys want to talk history, you want to talk being a famous cosplayer before there ever was such a thing on social media? This is Ikki Tosen. This is a collector's box of one of the manga of Ikki Tosen. There's a figure that comes in this box, and then it's this volume right here. I'm in this volume. The creator of Ikki Tosen met me as Kanu, one of his characters, main characters in this book right here. And I actually got to meet him at Comic-Con in 2006, back in the golden day of cosplay and comic conventions before Hollywood butted in and they just went corporate. And when you could still reach your hands out like this in a full costume and nobody would hit you at Comic-Con. That's like, nobody even knows about those days because we're all like this trying to get in. But anyways, so 2006, I met the creator. He came from Japan, and I was ecstatic. And he documented him meeting me and how it was like his character came to life to get her weapon autographed by him, and he was just like, how surreal is this? And in the back of these mangas, they actually, you know, draw like certain little comics about like what's going on in their life and such. If you guys don't know who Kanu is, and this was one of my signature cosplays, just like people knew me as, because I was a cosplayer who always did fighting games and martial art. This is Kanu Unsho from Ikitosen.
Oh yeah, that's the
that I
second
always
season,
cosplayed.
Dragon
Yeah.
Destiny.
So, back here, in this book, let me get to the page without messing it up. Here's the chibi comic he did of us meeting each other. And he describes in Japanese, you know, me walking up to him, putting the blade next to him, and being like, oh, senpai, will you please autograph my blade? And, you know, I was like, sign kudasai. And we had a grand old time talking. His, like, marketing team took a bunch of pictures of us. And that was just one of the awesome stories I have as a cosplayer, you know, with history, with actual history of cosplay and these conventions. And I've been very lucky to meet some of my heroes. He was one of them. But, you know, as much as they say these cosplayers are famous and popular nowadays, I'm sorry, I haven't seen you in a manga.
Got him.
Yeah.
I haven't seen you kiss Tetsuya Nomura on the cheek, or him call you Tifa, and I haven't seen you guys in mangas and stuff, and I even was on TV for years before other cosplayers had these cheesy reality shows or, you know, did anything. I was on G4 multiple times. I just, like, you know, there are DVDs, like I said, for me on sale at Tower Records and Suncoast. So I really feel like people nowadays, they do these so-called documentaries. You guys are missing the most important parts of history, is with the people who have these good stories to tell. And we're in the FGC, and we're in the cosplay community, and we're the ones that pioneered this nerdy way of life that is now mainstream, that Marvel got a hold of and that Hollywood got a hold of. But this was ours. This was ours first.
Right.
And even though my popularity isn't even as big as it was in the early 2000s, I would not take back all of the wonderful memories I have, all of the amazing E3s I got to enjoy, and everything when it was great and it was whole before, you know, everything just turned corporate marketing and mainstream. So y'all need to come see us for your next documentaries with the FGC and the stories and where people came from, because this stuff is gold and we're the people to tell these stories. So y'all missing out, because I got a good Final Fantasy one, and I also have a good one about meeting Stephen Chow, so I'll save those for other episodes for later.
Hey, Cookie, before you conclude, before you jump in, one last thing we got to touch on that's super important in this topic that, that Kitty just touched on. I'm not going to go fully into it this episode, but it's not just about the cosplay community. It's not just about the transgender community. It's about the community of people of color.
Oh, yeah.
The Vice documentary didn't go into that. I want to give a shout out to one person who pioneered all the fighting game community for people of color. Is Jason Isaiah Cole. Jason Afro Cole. Two-time world champion for Street Fighter II Turbo. My big brother, one of my senseis and mentors. He broke the barrier.
He did.
Early on in the fighting game community, before the boom of Instagram, before the boom of social media, before esports came, he was the first black champion of EVO and of the world. Two-time of the world. Okay, let's graduate a little further. So congratulations to Cole to doing that.
Also, may I conclude? I'm going to add to that because that is very true. Also, Ryan Hart of England. You know, he's African American, but actually he's African English, so he's from England. But also, he actually broke the barrier for also showcasing that we can be in the Guinness World Book of Records.
I was just going to say, he has Guinness records,
multiple times in Guinness World Book of Records, but what's also most importantly, which people kind of graze over but don't know, he fluently speaks Japanese, and he commentates in Japanese fluently and English and translates between the two. I like when he does his intermediary commentary where the Japanese are talking fully in their language and he's in the middle and he's translating in English for everyone to hear what they're saying in Japanese.
Right.
And I like that. And he's a person of color, he's one of us, you know, and they don't talk about that and they don't even, you know, CNN did their own recent documentary of him, which it was quite worthy of his own documentary, but it would have been nice to actually also include him in the Vice documentary as well and other stuff, and they just kind of like as if he didn't exist at
not
all.
enough research.
Yeah.
And that's those are the things
That's the key thing.
that's the thing that kind of bothered me about the documentary. It's, you know, no mentioning of Jason Cole, 2-time world champion, who's a African American person. Let's go forward. They glamorize Punk, they glamorize Smug, these new players who have barely the same amount of accolades as these players who played in the era when it was way harder to win.
And haven't finished school. At least the ones from our eras finished school.
Now hear me out. I'm not knocking
I'm
these.
just keeping
No,
it
I'm not
real.
knocking these new players of color who are doing these amazing things. They're the new pioneers of it in the new generation. But let's, before we get out of here, touch upon a couple people in this room. Cookye can't be ignored. Cookye is the champion of CEO Street Fighter 3 Third Strike reigning right now, and is a top 8 Evo medalist of 2019, the last Evo. I'm holding 2 titles. I have the title of NEC, CVS2. I have the title of Final Round.
Well, you know,
the title of a major, plus I have 2 Evo medals. 2nd place in the world and 5th place in the world at Evo. These are things that they don't want to talk about. They're going to kind of
Personally,
glance over that, and those are big things.
Well, to be honest, I don't really look at my wins as important because I know for you your wins are important, and I hope you get to the status where you want to be in this community. For me, my big win will be when I become the Eartha Kitt and the Josephine Baker of the FGC. That's what I want, which is of something different. Eartha Kitt, you know, spoke 4 languages, sang in 6. You know, she was a performing artist of her pioneer, and I want to take that concept and bring that performing arts of martial arts to that community. So when you see me finally on the stage doing that in Japan and doing that, then I will have gained what I really have wanted. You know, I don't really play the game to be the best. I play the game to get that spiritual connection and to manifest it in real time on stage, which the Japanese understand that, which is how I made that Japanese girlfriend from Japan when we played Samurai Spirits. She understood that. You know, we had a fun time. I wish I got her name.
Dope.
You know, she was, you know, we laughed the whole way through, like we had so much fun, and she didn't look at me weird. In fact, none of them did.
Right.
But thank you.
But these are just things that can't be ignored. Yes, you may not want the glory. Yes, you may not want all that, the title, but you are the champion of CEO, which is one of the hardest majors to win in the whole U.S., as well as, you know, placing well at combo breakers and everywhere else you fought in. Those are things that can't be ignored. Those are medals and accolades and titles you have earned. So these are things that Vice needs to touch on. And it's not just with us. There's several other people in the community who are Latino champions, other champions besides Japan who are of the Asian nationality, mixed champions, white champions, every race. It doesn't matter. Middle Eastern and Persian champions of different games and stuff. And like Latif and all these other great players, you know, and Arslan Ash and all these players from other countries, Pakistan and stuff.
Well, it sounds like the depth of this is more than the documentary. It needs to be a docu-series. It needs to have series and different episodes for different genres
for cosplays, one for, you know, top
cosplays,
players.
martial arts, the history's based off of these fighting games. I mean, it needs to be said. It needs to be showcased because we're living in this day and age and people still don't understand esports, you know. It's not mainstream yet. They're trying to make it there. They're trying to get there, but you know,
they have to know the history
before things could become mainstream, just like cosplay did. A lot of people don't know the backgrounds. They don't know the history. You know, they're just like, oh, this is a cool new thing now. And that's it. And
well, they're going.
all that lost in translation.
They're going with those. They're going with those that are currently in power, that are running some of the bigger tournaments.
Yes.
And of course, they're running their own agenda of rewriting history in their own image. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing here.
Right.
So that we can help offset that.
And that's where we'll leave it, because when we pick back up at this is a part story that won't end here. We have so many little pieces of that, and hopefully between you, I, and other
we want to jump
and,
on in.
and fighting game historians,
Yes.
we can paint a more full picture for people to go find the truth with, because the truth will often not be televised, and that's just the way it goes.
All right.
Those are wise words and true. But once again, this is why I like doing this with you guys. This is why the subjects we said that we were going to talk about that people choose not to. This is what it's all about right here and right now. So, and I'm very grateful for this team and that we have this rich, deep depth of knowledge and history with everything that makes the community.
Yeah, I'm giving recognition where it's due.
That too.
Well, thank you. I think this was a fulfilling. Wow, this was a fulfilling talk. this
Final
time
episode for the day.
around. Something like that, right?
Right.
Okay, well, thank you guys for tuning into the Strike First Gaming Show. I think we went way over time, but I look forward to seeing you in our next episode. Thank you for watching us.
Peace. Peace.